The air in the grand hall practically thrummed with excitement. 10-year-old Leo gripped his mother's hand, his knuckles white as they moved through the bustling backstage area. The scent of hairspray, expensive cologne, and something sweet like warm sugar hung heavy in the air. Leo had never been this close to such a legend before. Never imagined he would be. His mother, a kind woman with tired eyes, had pulled every string she knew to get them these passes. Not for her, not really for Leo, and, more importantly, for Lily. He'd seen Elvis on TV, heard his songs on the radio 1,000,000 times. But seeing him in person, even from the distant seats in the arena, had been something else entirely. The sequins, the sweat, the raw power of his voice. It was like magic. And now they were actually going to meet him. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs like a drum solo. Security guards in dark suits, their faces unsmiling, guided the small group of fans forward. Each person seemed to glow with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Leo could hear whispers around him, snippets of conversations about autographs, handshakes, a quick photo. He clutched the small tattered photo of Lily in his other hand. It was an old one taken before the illness had truly taken hold back, when her smile was as bright as any spotlight. Then he saw him, standing by a velvet rope, surrounded by a swirling galaxy of aides and managers, was Elvis Presley. He was even bigger, more vibrant than on screen. His famous jumpsuit, sparkling under the harsh, paged lights, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. It was pristine, white, embroidered with gold, and on his shoulders, flowing down his back, was the most magnificent cape Leo had ever laid eyes on. It shimmered with every tiny movement, catching the light like 1,000 tiny stars. Elvis was shaking hands, signing autographs, his smile warm and genuine, but his eyes held a flicker of something, a weariness perhaps, that Leo instinctively picked up on. He looked like a king, yes, but a king who carried the weight of his kingdom on his sequined shoulders. As they got closer, Leo felt a strange surge of courage. He wasn't sure where it came from. Maybe it was the sheer force of Elvis's presence, or maybe it was just the desperation he felt for Lily. He'd rehearsed what he would say 100 times, but now his mind was a blank. His mother squeezed his hand. "Go on, honey," she whispered, her voice a little shaky. "You tell him." Finally, it was their turn. Elvis turned, his famous smile broadening. His eyes, blue and surprisingly kind, met Leo's. "Well, hello there, young man," he rumbled, his voice deeper and softer than it sounded on stage. "What can I do for you?" Leo swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. He held out the photo of Lily. "This is my sister Lily," he began, his voice barely a squeak. She's really sick. She can't come to your concerts. She loves your music more than anything. She says your cape, it looks like it has magic." Elvis took the photo, his thumb gently brushing over Lily's smiling face. A shadow seemed to pass over his eyes, a moment of understanding. He looked from the photo to Leo, then back to the photo. He nodded slowly. "She's a beautiful girl," he said softly. Leo took a deep breath, gathering all his courage. This was it. This was the moment. "Mr. Presley," he blurted out, the words tumbling over each other. "Could she have your cape just for a little while? She believes it's magic. Maybe it could help her get better." Silence descended, thick and sudden. The bustling around them seemed to dim, the noise fading away. Leo felt the eyes of everyone in the room on him. His mother, the security guards, Colonel Parker, Elvis's formidable manager, who had been glowering nearby. He braced himself for a laugh, a polite refusal, an explanation about why a valuable costume couldn't simply be given away. He knew it was a crazy question, an impossible request. But Elvis didn't laugh. He didn't even hesitate. A different kind of light came into his eyes, a profound understanding. He wasn't seeing a boy asking for a prop. He was seeing a brother desperate for hope, clinging to a glimmer of magic. Without a second thought, without consulting anyone, Elvis Presley reached up, unclasped the heavy, shimmering cape from his shoulders, and held it out to Leo. "Here you go, son," he said, his voice gentle, unwavering. "Tell Lily it's all hers. Tell her it's got all the magic she could ever need." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Leo stared at the magnificent sparkling cape, then at Elvis's open generous. He had asked, and Elvis the King had given just like that. Leo reached out, his fingers trembling, and took the cape. It was surprisingly heavy, much heavier than it looked. The fabric, a rich, sturdy white, was covered in thousands of tiny, perfectly sewn gold sequins and intricate embroidery that depicted roaring lions and swirling musical notes. It felt cool against his skin, yet radiated a warmth, as if it still held the heat of the stage lights. Or perhaps the very essence of Elvis himself. A faint scent, a mix of sweat, cologne, and something undefinable like raw energy wafted from the fabric. It was the smell of a legend, the smell of a dream. He clutched it to his chest, the sequins cool and smooth against his cheek. It wasn't just a piece of clothing, it was a tangible piece of the magic he had witnessed on stage, a direct link to the man who embodied hope for so many. Elvis smiled, a genuine soft smile that reached his eyes. "Be careful with it now," he said, his voice a warm rumble. "It's got a lot of stories tucked into its folds," he winked, "and it's seen a lot of good times." Leo, still reeling, could only nod, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. He tried to speak, to offer thanks, but the words caught in his throat. His mother, who had been standing frozen in disbelief, finally found her voice. "Mr. Presley," she stammered, her hand flying to her mouth. You don't have to do this. This is incredibly generous. It must be very valuable." Elvis waved a dismissive hand. "Nonsense, ma'am," he said, his gaze fixed on Leo. "What good is a cape if it can't bring a little magic to someone who truly needs it?" This young man asked for his sister. "That's a powerful request." He leaned down slightly, speaking directly to Leo. "You make sure Lily knows it's from me, all right? And tell her to never stop dreaming." Colonel Parker, who had been hovering like a dark cloud, finally stepped forward, his face a mask of irritation mixed with a forced smile. "Elvis," he began, his voice low and tight, "that's your stage costume. We have a show tomorrow night, remember? What will you wear?" He shot a sharp glance at Leo, then the cape, as if it were a stolen box. Elvis barely acknowledged him. He placed a hand on Leo's shoulder, a firm, comforting touch. "Colonel, it's just a cape," he said, his voice carrying a subtle edge that told Parker not to argue. "I've got plenty of other outfits. This one's got a new mission now." He straightened up, his eyes meeting Parker's. "Sometimes, Colonel, the greatest performances happen off stage." Parker sighed, visibly annoyed, but knowing better than to push, he muttered something about unforeseen expenses and merchandising opportunities lost. But Leo didn't hear him. He was lost in the feel of the cape, the warmth spreading through him. He was holding hope, courage, and a tangible piece of a legend. He imagined Lily's face when she saw it, her wide eyes, the flicker of wonder that had been dulled by her illness. He felt a soft nudge from his mother. "Leo, thank Mr. Presley," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, Mr. Presley," Leo managed to stammer out, his voice thick. "Thank you so much, Lily. Lily is going to love it. It's the most amazing thing." Elvis smiled again, a genuine, kind smile that seemed to light up the whole room. "You're a good brother, son," he said. "Now you better get that cape home. It's got important work to do." As security began to usher them gently towards the exit, Leo clutched the cape even tighter. He could still feel Elvis's hand on his shoulder, the warmth of his presence. Glanced back, and Elvis was already turning to greet the next fan, a ready smile back on his face. But his eyes for a fleeting moment met Leo's. There was a shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the extraordinary exchange that had just taken place. Walking out of the arena, away from the flashing lights and the roar of the crowd, Leo felt like he was floating. The night air was cool, a stark contrast to the buzzing warmth of backstage, but the cape in his arms radiated its own heat, its own energy. His mother walked beside him, silent, every now and then reaching out to touch the shimmering fabric as if to confirm it was real. They got into their old car, and Leo carefully, almost reverently, laid the cape across the back seat. It filled the entire space, a cascade of white and gold. Even in the dim light of the streetlights, the sequins caught and reflected, making the inside of the car sparkle. It was like they were driving a chariot of stardust. The drive home felt impossibly long, yet also flew by in a blur of excitement. Leo kept glancing back at the cape, half expecting it to vanish, to reveal itself as a dream. But it was there, solid and real, promising something extraordinary. He thought of Lily curled up in her bed, probably trying to sleep but likely coughing, feeling weak. Soon he thought, soon she would have her magic, and maybe, just maybe, it would make all the difference. Porch light of their small house cast a dim yellow glow as Leo and his mother finally pulled into the driveway. Even before they were inside, Leo could feel the familiar weight of worry that settled over their home, always present when Lily wasn't at her best. He carefully, almost painstakingly, carried the cape from the car. It was an awkward burden, voluminous and heavy, but he wouldn't let his mother help. This was for Lily, and he wanted to be the one to bring it to her. Inside, the house was quiet, save for the soft hum of the old refrigerator. His father was already asleep, having worked a double shift at the factory. His mother went straight to Lily's room, a concerned frown on her face. Leo followed, his heart pounding with a different kind of anticipation. Lily's room was small, decorated with faded drawings she'd done years ago, and a few well-loved stuffed animals. She lay in her bed, a thin blanket pulled up to her chin, her face pale and her breathing shallow. Her dark hair, usually so full of life, lay flat against her pillow. At 7 years old, she was supposed to be running and playing, but her illness had slowly stolen her energy, her laughter, and the bright spark in her eyes. "Hey, sleepyhead," his mother whispered, bending to smooth Lily's hair. "Look who's home." Lily's eyelids fluttered open, her eyes, usually so vibrant, were dull. "Leo, you're back." Her voice was raspy. "How was Elvis?" Leo's grin was so wide it felt like it might split his face. He held the cape up, letting it unfurl a little in the dim light. "Lily," he said, his voice trembling with excitement. "I brought you something." Lily's eyes widened, truly widened for the first time in days. They fixed on the shimmering white and gold fabric, catching the faint light from the hallway. "What is that?" she whispered. A flicker of something he hadn't seen in ages, pure wonder coming back into her face. "It's Elvis's cape," Leo announced, his voice filled with pride. "He gave it to me. For you," he said. "It has all the magic you could ever need." His mother gasped softly from behind him. Lily, despite her weakness, pushed herself up a little higher, her gaze fixed on the dazzling garment. "The magic cape?" she breathed, her voice a little stronger, filled with awe. Leo carefully approached the bed, the heavy cape draped over his arms. He gently, slowly spread it over Lily, tucking it around her small frame. The golden sequins glittered, transforming her simple bed into a royal throne, her small room into a magical kingdom. The cape was enormous on her, swallowing her whole in its magnificent folds. Lily reached out a thin hand, her fingers brushing over the soft, heavy fabric, tracing the intricate patterns. A slow smile spread across her face, not a weak, tired smile, but a genuine, radiant one. Her eyes, usually clouded with pain and exhaustion, now sparkled with a light Leo hadn't seen in months. "It's so beautiful," she whispered, her voice filled with a reverence that brought tears to Leo's eyes. "It's really Elvis's." "Every stitch," Leo confirmed, sitting on the edge of her bed. "He said to tell you, it's all yours. And never stop dreaming." Lily burrowed deeper into the cape, its warmth seeming to infuse her. She closed her eyes for a moment, a peaceful expression on her face. "I can feel it," she murmured. "It feels strong." His mother sat on the other side of the bed, her hand gently stroking Lily's hair. Her eyes, usually full of worry, now held a glimmer of hope reflecting the golden shimmer of the cape. She didn't say anything about the cost or the impracticality, or how they would ever explain this to anyone. She simply watched her daughter, wrapped in a shimmering cocoon of kindness. For the rest of the night, Leo stayed by Lily's side. He told her every detail of the concert, of meeting Elvis, of the amazing moment the cape was given. He described the roaring crowd, the dazzling lights, the power of Elvis's voice. Lily listened, her eyes wide, occasionally reaching out to touch the cape, as if to confirm its reality. She didn't sleep much that night, but for the first time in a long time, it wasn't because of discomfort or pain. It was from pure, unadulterated excitement. She asked Leo to describe the gold embroidery, to tell her what TCB stood for, taking care of business, Elvis had once said on a TV show. To imagine what songs Elvis had sung while wearing it. As the first rays of dawn crept through Lily's window, painting the sequins with soft, pearly light, Leo looked at his sister. She was still pale, still frail, but there was a light in her eyes, a vibrancy in her gaze that hadn't been there the day before. Cape draped around her seemed to pulsate with a quiet, comforting energy. He didn't know if the cape would magically cure her. He wasn't naive enough to believe in that kind of magic. Not really. But watching Lily's face, seeing the genuine joy and hope radiating from her, Leo knew one thing for sure. Elvis Presley's act of spontaneous kindness had already performed a miracle. It had brought a piece of wonder back into their lives, a spark where there had only been shadow. And for a little girl fighting an invisible battle, a spark of wonder could be the most powerful medicine of all. News, especially news involving a legend like Elvis Presley, traveled fast. Even in a time before constant internet updates, the story of the king giving away his iconic stage cape to a young fan spread like wildfire. It started as a whisper among the crew, then a shocked murmur among the press who'd been backstaged. And within days, it was a national sensation. Colonel Parker, true to form, was furious. He had called Elvis, his voice a low, furious rumble on the phone. "Elvis, what in the good Lord's name were you thinking?" he'd bellowed. "That cape alone is worth a fortune, and your stage image. People expect to see you in that cape." Elvis, however, had surprised him. He was calm, almost serene. "It's just a cape, Colonel," he'd said, the same words he'd used backstage. "It felt right. The kid needed it more than I did." "Needed it?" Parker scoffed. "For what? A Halloween costume? Do you know the logistical nightmare? Peace is the publicity nightmare. People will think you're losing your mind." But public reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Fan mail poured in, not just about the usual concert experiences, but praising Elvis's unexpected act of charity. Newspapers, initial skeptical, ran heartwarming stories. The king's generosity, a heart of gold. Elvis gives more than just music. Photos of the general design of the cape, iconic and recognizable, were splashed across front pages, accompanied by speculation about the mystery child, who now possessed it. "He's truly a man of the people," one fan wrote. "He understands what truly matters. That's the Elvis I knowers," another penned. "Always thinking of others." The critics, those who often viewed Elvis as a manufactured phenomenon, were forced to be considered. It was an impulsive, uncalculated act, exactly the kind of genuine gesture that couldn't be faked. It humanized him, showing a vulnerability and compassion that transcended his superstar persona. For Elvis himself, the incident had a profound, quiet effect. He found himself thinking about that boy Leo and his sister Lily. He remembered the look in the boy's eyes, not greed, but pure, desperate love for his sibling. He remembered the photo, the pale but beautiful face of the little girl. He'd always loved his fans, but the demands of fame, the constant touring, the relentless schedule, sometimes made him feel disconnected, like a performer simply going through the motions. He wore the costumes, he sang the songs, he smiled for the cameras, but there were moments when he felt like a puppet. Giving away the cape had been an impulse, yes, but it had felt intensely real. It was an act of pure, unadulterated giving without expectation of return. And the feeling that washed over him afterward wasn't regret, but a deep sense of peace. It was a clarity he hadn't felt in a long time. He remembered his own childhood, growing up poor in Tupelo, Mississippi. He remembered dreaming big, wishing for things he couldn't have, believing in the power of music to transport him. He understood that simple, childlike belief in magic. He himself had once believed in it, in the magic of a guitar, a song, a voice that could make people forget their troubles. Now, as an adult, surrounded by unimaginable wealth and adoration, he sometimes forgot that simple magic. Cape to him was a costume, a symbol of his stage persona. But to a child like Lily, it was something else, entirely a conduit for hope, a tangible piece of a dream. Colonel Elvis said one afternoon, surprising Parker, who was going over tour dates, "We need to make sure that little girl is okay." "Do we know who she is?" Parker sighed dramatically. "Elvis, we can't just go tracking down every fan you give a souvenir to. That would be chaos and privacy concerns. No, not every fan." Elvis corrected, his voice firm. "Just this one." "It feels important." Parker, despite his grumbling, did make some discreet inquiries, mostly through his network of publicists and fan club presidents. Information was hard to come by. Leo's family was private, not looking for fame or special treatment. They just wanted hope. Elvis didn't push it too hard. He respected the family's privacy, but the incident lingered in his mind, a warm glow in the back of his thoughts. It made him rethink his performances, infusing them with a renewed passion. He sang with more heart, connecting with the audience on a deeper level. He took more time after shows, talking to fans, signing a few extra autographs, taking a genuine interest in their stories. The cape was gone, but its spirit remained, influencing him in subtle ways. It reminded him of why he started, of the raw, simple power of connecting with people, of the joy of giving, of the magic inherent in a single, selfless act. And that, he realized, was more valuable than any costume, any amount of money, any fleeting moment of fame. It was the true heart of the king. For Lily, the cape was more than just a piece of fabric. It was a warm, shimmering blanket of possibility. Every morning, after her parents helped her sit up, the first thing she'd ask for was the cape. Leo would carefully retrieve it from the armchair, where it rested, like a sleeping white dragon, and drape it over her, wrapped in the heavy sequined folds. Lily transformed. Her room, which had often felt like a cage, now felt like a secret chamber. She would lie there tracing the golden embroidery, her small fingers following the lines of the lions, the swirling patterns. "What do you think these lions are doing, Leo?" she'd ask, her eyes bright. "They're guarding the magic," he'd answer, making up stories on the spot. "They make sure only good dreams come through." He would play Elvis records on their old turntable, the needle scratching and popping, but Lily didn't mind. She'd close her eyes, listening to Elvis's voice fill the room, and sometimes she'd hum along a soft, reedy sound that was still weak but held long. Before the cape, Lily had been retreating, her world shrinking to the confines of her bed. She'd stopped talking about her dreams, stopped asking questions, stopped looking forward to anything. Now she asked questions all the time. She asked Leo to describe the stage, the lights, the roar of the crowd. She imagined herself standing there, singing, dazzling. She talked about what she would do when she was all better. She drew pictures, not just of stick figures anymore, but elaborate, glittery drawings of herself singing in a sparkling cape, surrounded by adoring fans. One afternoon, Leo found her trying to stand, gripping the edge of her bed, the cape pooling around her feet. She wobbled, her legs still weak, but a fierce determination was set on her face. "I need to practice," she'd whispered. If I'm going to sing, I have to be strong." He helped her, holding her steady, letting her take a few shaky steps, even if it was just across the small room. It was exhausting for her, but she didn't complain. She just looked at the cape, then back at Leo, a small triumphant smile on her lip. Their parents, initially skeptical about the magic, couldn't deny the change in Lily. She started eating a little more, sleeping a little better, and most importantly, her spirit had returned. The dullness in her eyes had been replaced by a sparkle that reminded them of the fiery little girl she used to be. "It's not the cape, not really," their mother said one night to Leo, watching Lily drift off to sleep, still wrapped in the white and gold. "It's the hope it gave her. It's what she believes it can do." Leo understood. The cape was a symbol. It was Elvis's act of kindness filtered through Lily's boundless imagination and her innocent belief. It was the physical manifestation of someone caring enough to give a piece of their dream to a little girl who desperately needed one. One day the doctor came for a checkup. He'd seen Lily many times, and his expression was usually one of professional concern, but today, he paused. He noticed the bright drawings on her wall, the slight improvement in her color, the new lively sparkle in her eyes. He saw the magnificent cape draped over her, though he said nothing about it. "She seems stronger," the doctor mused, checking her pulse. "Her spirits are definitely lifted. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." He wrote something on his pad, a thoughtful frown on his face. He didn't understand the science behind it, but he understood the power of a positive outlook, of a reason to fight. That night, Lily was particularly animated. "Leo," she said, her voice clearer than usual, Do you think Elvis knows about me? Really knows?" "I think he does," Leo said, his heart swelling with affection for his sister. "He said you had important work to do with the cape. He knows you're making it magic." Lily smiled, a soft, dreamy smile. She hugged the cape tighter around her. "I want to do more than just make it magic for me," she whispered. "I want to show him. I want to sing for him." Leo looked at her, truly. Looked at her and saw a glimmer of a powerful, impossible dream forming in her mind. It was a daunting thought, considering how sick she still was. But seeing the fire in her eyes, seeing the strength that the cape seemed to have awakened within her, he didn't tell her it was impossible. He just nodded, a silent promise forming in his own heart. Cape's magic wasn't just about comforting Lily. It was about inspiring her, giving her a new direction, a reason to get better, a bigger dream to chase. And Leo knew with a certainty that hummed through his very bones that this was just the beginning. The cape became Lily's constant companion. When she was well enough to sit up, she'd wear it, letting the heavy fabric pool around her like a queen's robe. When she was tired, it was draped over her, a comforting presence. It no longer smelled distinctly of Elvis, but of their home, of her own determined spirit. The sequins, though still bright, had a few loose threads from constant touch, a testament to its new life. As the weeks turned into months and then a year, Lily grew stronger. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. Her chronic illness wasn't gone, but its grip had lessened. She still needed medication, still had bad days, but the periods of debilitating weakness became less frequent. She started attending school for a few hours a day, then full days. She joined the school choir, her voice, though still a little fragile, growing steadily stronger, clearer, imbued with a quiet passion. Her dream of singing, born from the cape's magic, had taken root and blossomed. She didn't want to be Elvis, not exactly. She wanted to be Lily, who sang with all her heart, who shared her voice just like Elvis had shared his cape. Leo, now a teenager, watched his sister with a mix of awe and fierce pride. The cape sat folded neatly on a special cedar chest in Lily's room, brought out for her practice sessions, or for moments when she needed an extra boost of courage. It was no longer a crutch, but a cherished reminder of where her journey had truly begun. One evening, Lily, now 13 and vibrant, was practicing a song in her room. Her voice, sweet and clear, drifted through the house. It wasn't an Elvis song, but a gentle ballad about overcoming challenges. When she finished, Leo applauded from the doorway. "You're really good, Lily," he said, genuinely impressed. "Thanks, Leo. It's still hard sometimes, but when I feel tired, I think about, well, you know." She nodded towards the cedar chest. "I bet he does," Leo replied, picturing the iconic star. He knew Elvis had faced his own struggles over the years. Maybe this one act of kindness had meant something to him too. Lily walked over to the chest and gently ran her hand over the folded cape. "I want to give back," she said, her voice quiet but determined. "I want to sing for kids like me, kids who are sick, who need something to believe in. I want to show them the magic of music, just like Elvis showed me the magic of kindness. It was a new dream, born from the first one. It wasn't about fame or fortune, but about using her voice, her story, to bring hope to others." Leo felt a surge of warmth. This was the true legacy of the Cape. Their parents, seeing Lily's dedication and the positive impact her music had on her, supported her wholeheartedly. They found her a vocal coach, scraped together money for an old keyboard, and drove her to local talent shows and charity events. Lily didn't win every competition, but her sincerity, her sweet voice, and the unspoken story behind her passion captivated audiences. She often shared a simplified version of her story, how music and a special gift had helped her find her strength. She never named Elvis directly, wanting the focus to be on the message of hope, not on the celebrity. Cape remained a private treasure known only to their family and a few close friends. It was too precious, too symbolic to be put on public display, but its essence, its power, flowed through Lily's music. She often wore a small gold sequin brooch, a tiny tribute to the magnificent Cape, a secret nod to the source of her inspiration. One day, a local children's hospital reached out. They'd heard Lily sing at a community fundraiser and were deeply moved by her story. They asked if she would be willing to perform for their young patients, many of whom were struggling with long-term illnesses just like she had. Lily's eyes lit up. "Yes," she exclaimed, "absolutely. This is exactly what I want to do." As she prepared for her first performance at the hospital, Leo watched her. She was selecting songs, practicing harmonies, her face alight with purpose. The Cape sat on the chest, a silent witness. It had given her a reason to fight, a dream to chase. And now she was ready to share that dream, that hope with others. The Cape's magic, he realized, wasn't static. It was a ripple effect, spreading kindness and inspiration far beyond the confines of their small home. It was growing, evolving, finding new ways to touch lives, all because one man had, without a second thought, chosen to give. Years had passed since Elvis Presley had given away his iconic Cape. The incident had faded from the daily news cycle, but it hadn't faded from his memory. Sometimes, during a particularly grueling tour, or when the pressures of fame felt overwhelming, he'd find himself thinking about that young boy Leo and his sick sister. He wondered if the Cape had truly brought them the comfort and hope he'd wished for. The initial public reaction to his gesture had been surprising. Colonel Parker had, of course, eventually spun it into a positive PR story and unparalleled generosity. But for Elvis, it was more than just good publicity. It had been a profoundly human moment, a stark contrast to the often artificial world of celebrity. He'd found himself more present during meet and greets, genuinely listening to the stories of his fans. He'd started making small, unpublicized visits to children's hospitals, just sitting and talking with the kids, signing autographs, maybe singing a quiet song for them. These were not photo opportunities. These were moments of connection that recharged his spirit more than any roaring crowd ever could. "You're different, Elvis," his band members would sometimes remark. "More grounded?" He'd just nod, a wry smile playing on his lips. He didn't explain it. How could he explain that a fleeting moment with a desperate child had peeled back layers of cynicism and weariness? he hadn't even realized he'd accumulated. How could he explain that giving away a piece of his identity had somehow helped him rediscover himself? Cape had been a symbol of his stage persona, his power, his larger-than-life image. Giving it away had been an act of vulnerability, of letting go, and in doing so he felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. He realized that his true power wasn't in the costumes he wore or the songs he sang, but in the connection he forged with people. In the hope he inspired, his music, too, seemed to gain a new depth. He sang with more soul, more feeling, less concern for hitting every note perfectly, and more for conveying the raw emotion. His audiences felt it. His concerts, always electrifying, became even more so, imbued with a genuine warmth that radiated from him. "This is the real Elvis," one music critic wrote after a particularly moving performance. "Not the caricature, but the heart. He's rediscovered his passion." Colonel Parker, ever the pragmatist, was thrilled with the renewed energy and positive press. He attributed it to clever marketing strategies. But privately, even he had to admit that Elvis seemed to have found a new wellspring of inspiration. One afternoon, Elvis was sifting through a stack of fan mail. Most letters were routine, but one caught his eye. It was from a nurse at a children's hospital in a city he'd recently performed in. She thanked him for his recent unannounced visit, describing the joy it had brought to the patients. And then, at the end, almost as an afterthought, she mentioned something that made him pause. "One of our young patients, a girl named Lily, was especially touched by your visit," the nurse wrote. "She said she's a singer now. Inspired by your music and a special gift she received a long time ago, she's often performing for the other children, spreading so much joy. She's a true testament to the power of kindness." Lily, the name instantly resonated. It couldn't be a coincidence. He remembered the little girl in the photo, the reason Leo had asked for the cape. He remembered the specific gentle feeling he'd had when he'd handed it over. A warm wave washed over him. The cape had done its job. More than that, it had sparked something. It had taken root and grown, manifesting in a young girl who was now giving back, spreading her own kind of magic. He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. He didn't know the full story, not yet. He didn't know that Lily was singing for sick children because she had once been one comforted by his magnificent sequined cape, but he knew enough. He knew that the simple act of giving without expectation had created a ripple effect, spreading kindness and hope far beyond that backstage encounter. He leaned back in his chair, a rare moment of quiet contentment washing over him. Pressures of fame still existed. The relentless schedule still loomed. But now there was a deeper meaning to it all. He wasn't just performing for applause or money. He was performing because his music, his presence, could genuinely touch lives. He had given a cape, and in return, he had received something immeasurable. A profound affirmation of the good he could do, a renewed sense of purpose that transcended the glitter and the fame. King felt, for perhaps the first time in a long time, truly connected to his kingdom. Lily, now a young woman in her early 20s, stood on a small stage in a community center, her voice soaring through a heartfelt ballad. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, and a small golden sequined brooch sparkled on her simple dress. She wasn't famous in the celebrity sense, but within the world of children's hospitals, charity events, and local music venues, she was a quiet sensation, a beacon of hope. Her performances were always imbued with a raw honesty and emotion. She often shared a part of her story about overcoming a childhood illness and finding her voice through music, always hinting at a special gift that had given her strength. She kept the details about Elvis's private, wanting her own journey and message to shine. The cape, meanwhile, remained in its cherished spot on the cedar chest in her old bedroom at her parents' house. It was still magnificent, though some of the gold sequins had dulled slightly with age, and a few threads had come loose from the edges. It bore the marks of time and love. It was no longer a stage prop or a source of magical comfort, but a powerful heirloom, a tangible symbol of kindness, and the enduring power of dreams. Leo, now a successful architect, often visited, and they'd sit in Lily's old room looking at the cape. "Remember how small you were when he put it on you," Leo would say, a nostalgic smile on his face. It was like a mountain of gold and white. Lily would laugh. "And I thought it was going to make me fly. In a way it did, didn't it? It gave me wings." They often talked about the cape's future. It was too precious to sell, too meaningful to donate to a museum where it would just be another "It needs to keep giving," Lily said one evening, gently running her fingers over the heavy fabric. "It can't just sit here. It needs to inspire someone else, maybe." Leo nodded, understanding. "It's not just Elvis's cape anymore, is it? It's ours. It's Lily's cape. And it's a story. A story about a simple act that changed everything." One day, Lily was approached by a national charity that specialized in supporting children with long-term illnesses. They had heard her speak and sing at a few events and were incredibly moved. They asked her if she would consider becoming their national ambassador, using her story and her music to raise awareness and funds across the country. It was a huge opportunity, a chance to reach so many more children and families who were struggling just as she had. Lily hesitated, not because she didn't want to, but because it meant stepping further into the spotlight, sharing more of her personal story. "What do you think?" she asked Leo, the day the offer came. "It means telling a bit more about the cape, about how it all started. I've always kept that part quiet." Leo looked at the cape on the chest, its sequins glinting in the afternoon light. "Maybe it's time, Lily," he said softly. "The world needs stories like this. Stories about hope, about generosity, about believing in magic, even when things are tough." Lily thought about it for a long time. She thought about the pale, sick little girl she used to be wrapped in the king's cape. She thought about the simple, profound kindness of a man who had everything yet gave away a piece of himself without a second thought. She thought about all the children she wanted to reach, to show them that dreams could come true even when life was hard. Finally, she made her decision. She accepted the ambassador role. As part of her new role, the charity asked if she would be willing to lend the cape for a special exhibition they were planning, Symbols of Hope. Iconic gifts that changed lives. It would be a temporary display, carefully guarded, and its story would be told alongside Lily's, emphasizing the ripple effect of kindness. Lily was apprehensive at first. Cape had always been hers, their family's sacred treasure. But then she thought of all the children who would see it, who would hear its story, who might be inspired by its journey. "Okay," she told the charity director, "but it has to be about hope and about how a simple act of kindness can change a life." The cape was carefully packed and transported to a secure gallery for the exhibition. When Lily saw it displayed gleaming under museum lights, she felt a surge of emotion. It looked magnificent, just as it had that first night, but now it held so many more stories, so many more layers of meaning. It wasn't just Elvis Presley's cape anymore. It was the cape that had comforted a sick child, inspired a singer, and was now once again ready to embark on a new journey, spreading its unique brand of magic and hope to a wider world. Its journey was far from over. Elvis Presley, now in his later years. His touring days were behind him, but his music continued to resonate with generations. He spent his time quietly at Graceland, reflecting on a life lived in the spotlight. He often thought back to the unexpected moments that had truly touched his heart, moments that transcended the roar of the crowds and the flash of the cameras. The little boy and his sister Lily and the cape often came to mind. He had never forgotten that feeling of pure, unselfish giving. He had heard snippets over the years, vague mentions of a young singer named Lily, who performed for children in hospitals, her story often subtly hinting at a mysterious, life-changing gift. He'd seen a newspaper clipping once, a small photo of a graceful young woman with bright eyes and a small gold sequined brooch on her lapel. He couldn't be certain, but he had a feeling, a deep, quiet certainty that this was her, when a renowned children's charity approached him, asking if he would attend a special gala benefit concert in Memphis. He agreed without hesitation. It wasn't about fame or money. It was about giving back, about supporting the causes that genuinely mattered. The event was dubbed Harmony for Hope, and its theme revolved around the power of music and kindness to heal. One of the highlights of the gala was an exhibition called Symbols of Hope, pawning artifacts that represented significant acts of generosity and inspiration. Elvis, arriving at the gala, was escorted through the exhibit before the main concert. He saw historical documents, famous artists' donations, and then, in a softly lit display case, he saw it. His cape. It was unmistakable. The white fabric, the intricate gold embroidery, the slightly dulled sequins, the heavy drape of it. It was the very cape he had worn so many times, the one he had given away without a second thought. A small plaque beside it read, "Elvis Presley's Harmony Cape, donated to a child in 1972. This cape became a symbol of hope for a young girl battling illness and inspired her to become a voice for others. He stood there for a long moment, a lump forming in his throat. He reached out his fingers, brushing the cool glass of the display case. It was real, and it had truly helped. A profound sense of peace washed over him, deeper than any applause could evoke. This, he realized, was his true legacy. Not just the music, but the unexpected ripple effect of a simple, heartfelt act of kindness. Later that evening, as the main concert began, the final performer was introduced, our national ambassador, a true symbol of hope herself, Lily Foster. Elvis was seated in the front row, his heart stirring with anticipation. He watched as a young woman walked onto the stage, graceful and poised. She wasn't the frail child in the photo, but her eyes held a familiar spark, a quiet strength, and pinned to her elegant gown, glinting under the stage lights, was a small golden sequin brooch. Lily spoke first, her voice clear and resonant. Tonight we celebrate harmony, hope, and the incredible power of kindness, she began. My own journey began with a special gift, a gift given by an extraordinary person who, without a second thought, gave me something precious. It wasn't just a physical object. It was a symbol of belief, of trust. It gave me the strength to fight and the courage to sing. Her gaze for a fleeting moment swept over the audience, and for a split second her eyes met his. A knowing smile touched her lips, a shared secret passing between them, though neither said a word. Then Lily began to sing. Her voice was pure and strong, filled with emotion. It wasn't an Elvis song, but an original composition, a beautiful melody about finding strength and vulnerability, about light piercing through darkness. As she sang, an old black and white photo flashed on the screen behind her. A young girl, pale but smiling, wrapped in a shimmering white and gold cape. It was Lily as a child. With his cape, tears welled in Elvis's eyes. He wasn't just hearing a song, he was witnessing the culmination of a story, a life transformed, a dream realized. He was seeing the enduring impact of a single act of generosity. He had given a cape, and she had woven it into a life dedicated to inspiring others. The audience erupted in applause as Lily finished a standing ovation that went on for minutes. Elvis rose with them, clapping, a profound sense of fulfillment radiating from him. He watched her bow, her smile radiant. He might not have been recognized, or approached, or thanked directly in that moment, but he didn't need to be. The harmony in the room, the hope in Lily's voice, and the quiet testament of his cape in the exhibition hall were more than enough. He had truly, unequivocally taken care of business. The Harmony for Hope Gala was a resounding success, raising substantial funds for children's health. Lily Foster's performance and her story resonated deeply with everyone present. Temporary exhibition featuring Elvis's harmony cape drew considerable attention, becoming a poignant centerpiece of the event. Elvis, despite the public recognition, chose to remain in the background that night. He watched Lily from afar, a silent observer of the beautiful life that had blossomed from his spontaneous act of kindness. He understood that the true magic was in Lily's journey, not in his own brief moment of giving. He felt a deep, quiet satisfaction that surpassed any cheer from a stadium crowd. Cape, after its temporary display, was returned to Lily's care. She and Leo decided after much discussion that it should continue to inspire. They didn't want it to be locked away or simply put in a museum as a relic of celebrity. They wanted its story to live on, to bring hope to future generations. They decided to work with the Harmony for Hope charity to create a traveling exhibit. Cape would journey to children's hospitals and community centers across the country, always accompanied by Lily, or sometimes Leo, who would share its story. It wasn't about Elvis Presley as a superstar anymore, but about the profound impact of kindness and the power of belief. Lily continued her work as the charity's ambassador, her voice and her story touching countless lives. She never forgot the little girl wrapped in the two-bit cape, clutching a dream of healing. And she never stopped being grateful for the man who, without a second thought, had made that dream tangible. She incorporated a small sequin from the cape into her microphone stand, a subtle personal connection to her origins, a daily reminder of where her strength came from. Elvis, in his twilight years, found immense comfort in these quiet, indirect acknowledgments of his legacy. He received letters from families who had heard Lily speak, expressing their gratitude for the hope she brought. He knew his music would live forever, but it was the profound impact of that one selfless gesture, the giving of his cape, that truly defined his heart. It was a quieter, deeper kind of fame, one that touched the soul. The Harmony cape became an icon in its own right, not for its original owner, but for the story it carried. It represented the simple truth that sometimes the greatest gifts are not bought or sold, but given freely from the heart. It taught that even a king with all his power and fame could find his deepest purpose in a moment of pure, unselfish generosity. And for Leo and Lily, the cape remained a cherished family heirloom passed down through generations. It wasn't just a piece of fabric, it was a tangible reminder of a moment when the impossible became real, when kindness sparked a miracle, and when a legend's gesture changed a child's life forever. It stood as a testament to the fact that hope, like a golden sequin, could always find a way to sparkle, even in the darkest of times, and that the true magic in the world often lay in the simplest, most unexpected acts of love. And so the legacy of Elvis's cape continued, a shimmering beacon of hope, forever reminding the world that kindness indeed could be the greatest magic of all.